Family to me is a tribe. It's the group of people who make you you. It's the group of people who make you feel safe, who you come home to. And it's really not a lot different than fatherhood. I approach parenting from that same place of what does family mean to me. I was lucky enough with my father to grow up with a man who I knew was always supporting me, who was there for me, who was not going to turn me away. And I think it's, if I could give anything to my little guy, that's what I would want to give him. It's also fatherhood's a journey. And, I think that's true of guys who become fathers biologically. I think it's true of folks like myself who adopt. You go in with ideals and goals and plans, and most of that goes out the window as soon as you have a real human being looking to you to fill that role. So fatherhood to me is adaptability, flexibility. It's figuring out how to share yourself with another person while making room for them to be their own person. So when I was writing for the stage, it's dialogue driven. It's, you're writing what you want people to say to each other, and the messages and the themes that you want to convey to an audience 100% come through the dialogue. You can create imagery. You can tell a director what you think the stage should look like. You can help set the scene, but you're really relying on the dialogue and then the actors who are going to present it to carry the story. And dialogue becomes, I would say, so sparse and scarce. In this collection that I've written, I notice I use dialogue infrequently. And when it's used, it's really important. There's some storytelling poems where someone is bringing you into part of their past, and it made the most sense to use the words they used. And a lot of that was because I was writing, a mom's story of meeting dad. And it was, in her voice, in her words, as she told me about that meeting. So, it helps me. My theater background, writing for the stage, helps me because I know how people speak. I know how they sound. And it was a hindrance was when I couldn't just rely on dialogue. And when I really needed to, jump into metaphors and jump into using images and bringing the emotion out of the audience that way. The most difficult part of creating this was processing the grief. That had to happen hand in hand with the creation of the book. And maybe it didn't have to happen that way, but for me, the type of stories I'm used to telling, I wanted it to be real. If I wasn't going to share the real parts, then what was the point? But what that meant was I had to step into the grief. I had to sit in it for a while. I had to find my way through it, and sometimes not find my way through it, and then figure out how to share it. I mean, dad passed away in July. We've been through a Christmas, I've been through his birthday. I've been through a lot of firsts so far without him here. And I thought I'd processed a lot of it. I thought I'd worked my way through a lot of it. Delving back into the poems over the last 2 nights, it all comes back up. And I don't think that's just because it's my stories and my emotion. I think it's because the poems really do a good job of bringing you when you're reading them. Certainly the vulnerability and just the, naked truth of what's on the page has been the hardest part. Yeah, first my dad, there was, for a man whose life was so much about the stories he told and, the jokes he told and just how he showed up, it started to feel for me about 4 years back like I wanted to find a way to capture that. I knew what he was dealing with: Parkinson's, dementia, COPD. These were not going away. They were only going to get worse. And it was becoming very apparent that they were going to get worse quickly. There's a moment in the collection called Deer in Headlights. And that poem for me is a real moment from my life where I'm on my way to work and I turn off the 401 and there's a deer literally sitting in the middle of the road, and I've got to pull over to the right. All the cars have got to stop. And I'm watching this deer sit there, and I had this sense of like, this sort of broken, lost creature who desperately needs help in the moment. And I was thinking about my dad. I was thinking about my son. I was thinking about all of us who were parked at the side of the road watching. And I thought, who's going to be the person that steps up? Who's going to get out of the car? Who's going to help? And in the moment with the deer, that meant picking the deer up, getting the deer out of the road, calling for help. But for my father and my son, it meant finding a way to tell their stories, and finding a way to capture this moment that was the beginning of my son's journey with us and the end of my father's journey with us. Those were two crucial things happening in my life, and I felt like this book would be the way to bring them together. That's a big question. It's a big question. So, I mean, the first thing you need to know about me is I'm a huge fan of what Marty does, Marty Jervik. And what he's put together with the editing and publishing practicums, it stuns me how amazing of an opportunity it is for a group of students who are passionate about writing, passionate about publishing, passionate about the arts. He's found a way to bring all of this together into a tangible, hands-on university experience that actually shows you what it would be like to be out in the real world, working with an author, working with a publisher, all of the compromises that come with that, all of the difficult conversations that come with that, and then actually having you design, layout, edit, market, promote, launch. This is a one-stop shop course that teaches you, I think, skills that are valuable for whatever you're going to do down the road. But at the end of it, you're holding a book that you're going to find on a shelf at Indigo, that you're going to find on Amazon, that you're going to find at Biblioasis, and that book has your name in it, and you created it, but you did it with a group of people. So for years I've been a fan of this course, this program. I've been invited to the launches for other authors' works. I've been able to sit back and watch and see the magic happen. I've been on the panel of specialists that come in and give feedback to the students. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I'd be on this side of it. There was so much care behind it. There was so much just desire to get it right that I never felt annoyed. I never felt like, why am I doing this, or why are they asking this? I never felt like it was just my book. I always felt like it was our book. And I felt, I don't like the word blessed, but I felt really lucky over the last, few months to be doing this with you guys. We're at the point now where, in a couple days it goes to the printer, and I'm not afraid. I'm not nervous. I'm not second guessing you guys. You had a conversation in your class today about the cover that is going in a slightly different direction than I thought it would go in. And I was fine with it. I said to Marty, if the entire group feels one way, they feel it for a reason. And they're close enough to this, manuscript that I've got to keep trusting them. So, trust has been the, I guess, biggest part of it. And I don't feel like I've let you guys down, and I certainly have not been let down by you. So is it scary? Yes. But I think it's more creative and more artistic and collaborative than it is scary. He's 8 years old and he turns 9 in about 5 days. And so for him, this is a really bizarre thing. He said to me recently, you're always looking at your poem book, and you're always talking to people about your book. Why are you doing this book? That's his big question to me. Why are you doing this? And so, over the course of this process, there's been a few times I've said to him, there's some poems in here about you. Do you want to hear them? And what amazes me is how he picks up on the imagery, and he understands what I'm talking about him, even if it's a particularly, poetic piece that's above an 8-year-old's sort of comprehension level. And it's fascinating to me to see him find himself in the collection. He loves that there's a picture of him, even though it's not, it's not a picture of his face. It's a picture of him holding some starships. He loves that picture is in there. He asks me if he can go to the launch. He's asked me that a lot. He's asked me, when will it be a real book? That's his, frequent question. When will this be a real book? And to him, that means with a cover on our bookshelf, that he can pick up. And I've explained to him, when he asked me what's the book about, I say, well, a lot of it's about Grandpa, and a lot of it is about me, and a whole lot of it is about you. And I said to him, do you know why I would write about that? And he said, because we're family. So he gets it. He gets what this is. There's going to come a day, obviously, where he's going to pick this book up from a whole different perspective. And so it doesn't mean this to him right now, but there will come a point where he will understand that the poems about him are there to preserve what it was like to find each other. And I think that's going to be a big deal to him. I want people to walk away from the book understanding how important it is to be with and to be there for the people who matter to us. There are poems where mom is talking about her vows to dad. There are poems where my siblings and I are trying to figure out what our role is in the end of his life. There are poems where my husband and I are trying to find our path through the adoption system to get to our son. There are poems where our son is trying to find his place in our family. And what all of those things have in common is how you show up for the people around you, what you are willing to do for them, who you are willing to be for them. Sometimes that's a storyteller, sometimes it's a story keeper, sometimes it's the person holding someone's hand at the end. Sometimes it's the person sitting down with someone you've loved and honestly telling them what went wrong. So when I think, what do I want someone to feel or to take away when they close the book? I want them to get the sense that life is a constant series of endings and beginnings, that each one of them is important, and that you really need to be in tune with the people who are part of your journey.